Here's a behind-the-scenes look of our creation process here at It's Your Break. Hi, I'm Jonathan Mertz, host of It's Your Break and the creator of both It's Your Break and Adventures with Bubba. And what I'm going to give you is a behind-the-scenes look at how I do some of the graphic work for Adventures with Bubba. And we're going to be going over this image right here for an episode called Bubba Solves a Mystery. And we'll go over how each element comes into play. And the really cool part is, I'll show you how I designed the characters for this piece. Obviously, I'm not the creator of Shaggy and Scooby, but the design in this piece is my own. I do all of my work in Photoshop for the most part, but the original sketches I always do on paper and then import them into Photoshop. And I try to be non-destructive as possible. I work with layers, so all these images you're going to see are already done. I'm just going to show you an overview. So here's the original sketch I did in 2018 of Bubba. And I'm going to start applying all the layers to it so that you see what the process was. So I'll start with the outline work. There's the Bubba outline. And once I take away the original image, you'll see what I'm left with. You're like, well, that's not finished. That's not really an outline. Actually, it is. And you'll see why in a few minutes as the rest of the layers come in and they color in. They'll add everything that's needed to finish this out. And I'll still end up using some shapes and stroking those out with colors to make the line work look like it was there. And we'll start with the hat here. We'll start coloring it in. And for his logo on there, that square, it was actually just a regular rectangle shape, and then I kind of warped it to fit the angle of that hat. From there, we're going to start finishing out his face, just work on the eyes a little bit. I used the ellipse tool to get a kind of a perfect circle look to those eyes, and just layered bits and pieces over it to make each of those shapes come alive. Again, this isn't a how-to, this is kind of an overview of my process. Finishing out his mouth, and then from there we're going to start going into the skin color and skin tone. One thing I did not know, what are the values of skin tone from each shade, and I kind of picked almost kind of a peachy almondy shade, but if you Google skin color you can find that information out. And then of course I fill in the hair, and then that pretty much completes the head work. From there we're going to move on to his shirt. As you notice, I'm not coloring every single piece in, and that's because other elements like these are going to fill that in just fine. And each one of these are pretty much shapes. They're either shapes or I did the color fill to fill in that line work. And then of course we're moving on to the arms. All I'm doing in this case is just color fill. No more line work is going to be done. You're just filling in the colors and it all comes together. Now moving on to the pants. For his belt, I did a shape again, kind of warped the edges a little bit so it fits his profile. And then for his belt buckle, I also used a shape. Now for the little steer head on there, I just used a vector graphic, shrunk it down to fit. It's just an open source vector graphic that I found. Now I can't do shoes. I really suck at shoes. So I found a vector graphic of a shoe and reversed it so that it looks like it's the same shoe on each foot, but in different angles. So there's the finished Bubba. Quick look at the original again, and here's the final. And that's how I did Bubba. Now the next character I designed was the zombie, or Zombie Bob, as you'll find out from the episode. And again, I'll start with a sketch. But before I go on to filling in what has already been done and just kind of bringing back the layers, I'm actually going to show you my process of how I outline and create. So I'm not real good with freehanding. So in some cases, if it's very complicated, I'll use the pen tool and anchor points. Quick tip, if you're going to freehand though, and you're not using a mouse, and you're actually using a pad like I use, turn on smoothing, because it'll actually make your lines a lot smoother as you draw freehand. I actually learned that lesson after I did Bob, and it would have sped up my process a whole lot. But as you can see, I'm working on each anchor point and just kind of getting them into position the way I want them to be, so that the outline of his upper body is going to be there. And don't worry about every piece of it being perfect, because if you got other objects or other parts of that body that's going to lay over top of that, it'll cover it up. As you see, I'm kind of deciding which anchor points to keep and which ones to get rid of. So you'll see anchor points appear, disappear, because I'm just going click, get rid of it, undo, back and forth to figure out which ones I want to keep and which ones aren't necessary. Now once I'm done with that, I'm going to right click and stroke the path. One thing to keep in mind is know what your brush size is, because that will determine how thick that stroke path is. So let's move away these anchor points, and then boom, there's kind of like the upper body layout that I would start to use. So this kind of gives that look and feel of that. And I may even refine that, and I did for this image actually, when I went in and actually did this image. So let me show you the line work that we have for Zombie Bob. All right, so this is the line work. This is it. This is all I'm going to use. Everything else is going to be shapes that are filled in and coloring. That's it. So we're starting with the facial features, putting in the eyebrows, putting in the eyes, and then of course I use the Eclipse tool again to make those kind of ovally looking eyes. And then of course I put this tongue in there because I thought it was pretty comical to have it, because it kind of looks like he's cracked out a little bit more than just being a zombie. Now, I can't do hair worth a darn, so I actually found clip art for this one that fit just perfect. I was like, oh, I'm going to use it. It saves me some time. And please, take use of the internet. It has a lot of open source products like this out there. So in this case, I didn't want the traditional black tie, so I did a color overlay and changed his tie color to orange. Again, because the tie is a separate layer, I can just apply it only to that one area, and boom, it's ready to go. Filling in the jacket with this nice kind of blue color. I don't know what color blue that is, but I like it. I just thought it would be perfect for him. And then on down to the pant, filling those in and getting those colored in just right. And the shoe in this case I actually did draw. So outside of the skin color for the zombie, that's it. I just got to fill in the skin and this thing will be done. Now originally I thought about using a regular natural white guy looking kind of skin tone. And I'm like, it just makes him look really spazzed out and crazy. It doesn't make him look like a zombie. So I grouped all those together and then applied effect to the group, a color overlay effect actually, and just picked that color, applied it, and then boom, all of the skin color is now this green color. Oh yeah, I forgot I added a little bit of shadow effects too. And that's the finished product for Zombie Bob. So let's take a look real quick again at the before, and there's the finished product. Now, when I got to Shaggy and Scooby, I really refined my process. And here's the original sketch that I did. And I learned about the smoothing tool as you freehand. It kind of leads you out so you can see where that line is actually going to go. It made things a lot easier on the line work. And here's the line work I did. Most everything was freehanded. I did use the pen tool on some things, but most everything in this one was completely freehanded. So we're going to start with Scooby first, laying down the base coat, and then the ears and the whites, and then his collar, finishing it out. And that's it. Like I said, I had really refined the process when I got here. Now we'll move on to Shaggy, starting with his shoes, his pants, his skin color, his eyes. And for his shirt, actually in the graphic, I use the same color as that background, but for demonstration purposes here, I'm going to do a color overlay to kind of make it pop away from the background so you can see it, giving him a real kind of emo look that I was going for. And of course, to finish Shaggy off, gotta give him some hair. And in this case, I actually did draw this hair, and it was kind of tedious. And that's it. Here's the before, and there's the final piece. Now, when I do my graphics, they're always in the TV 16:9 proportions. And I do that so they can be used in various sources. In this case, a 4K image. And we're going to start off by applying the background, which I've already imported. And this is a nice, beautiful, kind of cartoony background. Next, I'll add in Zombie Bob. But you notice right here that Bob is actually in front of the tree and on the ground at the same time. So that really can't happen. So we're going to have to duplicate, or in this case, I did duplicate the background, create a layer mask, got rid of the background, and only painted in the sections that I needed to make Bob look like he was behind the tree. Here, let me show you how that looks actually with the layers here. So there's Bob. I had this portion of that tree that's in front of him, and then of course he's in front of the actual background layer. So when you add it all together, it kind of looks like he's now behind that tree. And then I added in Shaggy and Scooby. Now everything that I add in, I had to scale down so that it fit this image just perfect. And then lastly was Bubba to this image. From there, I'm going to add in the rest of what I typically put in my graphics, starting with the logo for Adventures with Bubba, and then the title that I want to give the graphic, put an area for my social media links for the podcast, and then some other graphics. And that's it. There's the graphic that I created for the episode Bubba Solves a Mystery. hopefully you got to see this process a little bit and understand what I do. Again, it wasn't a tutorial, it's just an overview, and please don't hate me for it. I still love you.